and welcome back to another episode on Let's Talk Football Careers with today's guest, Dougie Imrie. How are you doing, Dougie?
I'm very well, thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me on your show.
Appreciate you joining us. So, just going to document your career as I do with all my guests. So, I've got down here just as a wee summary that you could correct me here. Are you forward winger? What would you class yourself?
I would say probably a winger.
A winger, right? We'll go with that. So, you played over 430 odd matches in Scotland. Scored over 60 odd league goals, and your career consists of Lanark United, Clyde, Inverness, Hamilton, St Mirren, Greenock, Morton, and then finished off at Hamilton again. But if you could start back at the start, you for your youth, you played with a few amateur teams this year: Kirkfield United, Lanark Thistle, and Symington Tinto. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. Before we got into my professional career, I didn't really care too much about football, Barry. It was more I was BMXs and wanting to go fishing at an early age, and then, like I says, I started kicking a ball, and my dad took me along to Kirkfield one night. Jim Forrest was a guy. He's still living at the moment. Jimmy's got some health problems, but Mr. Kirkfield is what he likes to be known, or we like to call him that. You know, he's a great servant to the local community in youth football, and they gave him an opportunity, and that's where I really got the love of the game, playing from them. And I played there for maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then I got a call one day from my friend's dad to see if I wanted to go and play for his amateur team, which was Lanark Thistle. And like I said, I was a 14, 13-year-old kid playing against grown men at, like I say, amateur level, 35, 40-year-olds, and I loved every minute of it. And I think that was the upbringing that really got me to the level I got to play at, because, like I say, I had to learn the game so quickly playing against these older guys who were just there to kick lumps out of you.
Tough and jab.
It was brilliant, and like I say, I think that's now missing from the game. You know, I know I've worked in academy football, but I think a lot of kids now are lost in it because it's one way. You play a certain way. It's playing against your own age groups, and even now in some of the academies, there's no competitive side of it, because up until under 16s, under 18s football, there's nothing to play for. So from under 9s up to under 15s, it's just come for the love of the game and get to understand the game, which I think doesn't really help when the kids get older, because they don't have that demand of winning in competition, which is difficult. But yeah, go back to the early part of my career, for Lanark Thistle for a good number of years. And then I went to Symington Tinto, and they played in the Caledonian League. Some people might know the league. It's probably the best amateur teams. So I was only there for a short time. I was there for maybe 5 weeks maximum. And I was scouted by Lanark United, the junior team. They came and watched me.
Well, this age, sorry, you're about 21, eh? 20, 21 at this time.
I was younger than that, Barry. I went junior when I was 17.
Is that right? Cool.
Yeah, so I had 6 years at Lanark, and then I left when I was 23 to go to Clyde. But
so you were 21, 23, sorry, and then before you effectively went to Clyde, you were turning 24. I've got here, eh?
Yeah,
so later start, eh? But like you said, once we go through your career, you can see that you played till I think you're about 35, 36 by the time you retired, eh? Maybe even older.
I actually think I was just about turning 37 when I was 36-ish. Yeah, so like I say, the Lanark United is where I really made a name for myself. Like I say, really enjoyed the junior football again. I got a lot of respect and admiration and thanks to Derek Brown, Tiddler as he's known, for giving me that opportunity to go into the junior game. You know, it was a tough upbringing, a tough learning experience, but one I thoroughly enjoyed. It made me as a player, you know, playing against ex-senior players who knew the game inside out. I was a wee scruffy guy from Lanark, built like a lamppost. And had to quickly understand the junior game and how it was played. But I quickly got used to it, got to grips with it, and probably my only regret, you know, we won the league with Lanark, we won one of the top cup competitions, Evening Times Cup. My only ever regret was not getting the opportunity to play for the Scotland junior team. And it's so cliche. Once I went to Clyde, it was they came back and said, "Oh, well, you were going to be in the next squad. You would got an opportunity." So that was probably only a disappointment in junior football. I loved every minute of it. Loved playing with the players I played with at Lanark. Loved the coaches, the managers that I had. After Derek, we had Tom McDonald, who won everything with Auchinleck Talbot. Tom won Amazon, won 6 Junior Cup finals with Auchinleck. So a real top player in the juniors and a top manager in the juniors. So him and John Gibson were excellent for me. They took my game to another level, which then inevitably got me my opportunity.
I was speaking to Ian Murray as well. He was saying the same. His career started off coming through like Hutchie Vale and all that, and he said they went more at that time in his career than they did probably through the rest of his career. He says I went so much in that period where I was a youngster, playing with, like you say, the tough men sort of attitude.
Yeah, it's like there's no leeway even now. Like I'll still go and watch local games. I'm only 5 minutes for the park, and like some of the tackles you see going in, and it's just like play on. Like so, it's not like the game we're involved in where like the game's going a different way. You can barely tackle now without getting a yellow card. Like I wish the game was still the way I know it, or how I played it, because. Like I say, the game isn't the same as it used to be.
You can see it going through the English leagues, the Premiership, the Championship. You can see all the difference in that. I watched the game recently, and it was just so stop, start, foul, dive, free kick, constant all the time. And you can see it sort of filtering through divisions. I've been watching the Championship this year, which you're managing, and that's a brilliant wee league. I say a wee league, but it's the 10 teams. There's so little between the 10 teams, and you can see it's still got that rawness. Whereas you see the level of the Premier League with all the money involved in that. Takes it away.
No, 100%, Barry. Like I say, I go to a lot of games. I like to get out and about with the job I have now. And like I say, anytime you go and watch a Premier League game, it's just like boring. I'm being realistic here. It's boring because, like you're saying, VAR, it's just stoppage after stoppage. There's like stopping, the flow of the game stops. There's no fan atmosphere because they don't know what's happening. Like I say, my own opinion, I would rather we just went back to just let the referee the game. No interference with VAR. We don't need computers and cameras to make decisions. Just let them. Everybody's human. People are going to make mistakes. We'll make mistakes as managers. Players will make mistakes as players. Referees are going to make mistakes. But the worst thing is now we're actually getting told off of VAR. They're in to make it better, and they're making mistakes. So
it's with all that technology there. It's madness.
Let's just go back to the way it was, in my opinion, and just let the referee and the assistant referees and linesmen referee the game, and I'm sure there'll be a better spectacle for everyone. Yeah,
it's all fan based. I mean, I was speaking to John Robotham. I feel like I'm just name dropping here, but these are just my experiences. And I was speaking to John Robotham. I said to him, I says, "How would you like VAR in your time?" He says, "That would have been amazing." He says, "I wouldn't have needed to be responsible for anything. I would just need to run about the pitch, get and tell in my ear what's happening." He says, "But it takes it away." He says, "I didn't want my career like that." He says, "There's no passion there."
I think that's the problem in my division now, Barry. Like, obviously, the game on Saturday, we have a goal chopped off in the last minute of the game. And again, when you see it back, obviously, it's easy for us when we're doing analysis and we've got all the computer stuff, the technology, we stop it and we can see my players 1 yard onside. But because the referee and the fourth official and the lineman on Saturday were from the Premier League, I don't know if it's subconscious that they're just making a decision and then they forget, oh, VAR's not here, so they can't go back and do the lines and see if it's on or off. So it's frustrating from our point of view because, like I say, at times we feel as if the referees now are refereeing the games as if they're in the Premier League when they're not. So sometimes we get aggrieved and we get frustrated.
Yep, 100%. I was just going to move on, Dougie, on your time at Clyde. You were signed by Graham Roberts, I believe, in the January 2006.
I was. So yeah, I want this to be an open chat. So I'll tell you how that worked. I'm not telling any lies when I speak. I'd rather people seen my background and how I got to where I want to get to, because there'll be people maybe watch this or want to get to where I got to. So leading up to that, I had a very good job, Barry. I was a landscape gardener with a company called Murray Landscapes, good wage, had a house, had a girlfriend at the time, had a mortgage. And then the Clyde thing came around, and it was, what do you want to do? Do you want to become a professional footballer, what you've dreamt from all your life, or do you want to still keep cutting grass and working 12-hour shifts every day? So, you know the answer.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a footballer. It was my dream. So I gave up everything. I gave up my job. I gave up my house. I lost a relationship because I wanted to be a footballer. So I went from having a really good wage to going to play for Clyde in the Championship on £150 a week.
Madness, eh?
Because I wanted to live the dream.
Yeah.
So I gave everything up. Thankfully for me, in the end, it worked out really well. I went on to have a great career, play for some really good clubs, and now I'm a manager. So I sacrificed a lot in the early part for what I'm doing now, and like I said, it's worked out. But I think it's important that I tell the story how it actually worked and sacrifices I made, because people just think you don't just become a footballer. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the time and effort. You have to give up a lot. You have to make good sacrifices that upset.
Even now you're in Belgium. You were saying to me, I mean, you're around constantly. Can people just think you've got the game, the training, and it's quite a cushy wee number you've got, but they've no idea. Eh?
Nah, like I say, my time at Clyde was excellent. You know, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, the Championship, it was a very young squad that we had. You know, with Graham Roberts took me in January. They just beaten Celtic 3 days previously in the Scottish Cup 2-1. Eddie Malone and Craig Bryson scored the 2 goals. Roy Keane made his debut. So I was into that environment, like everybody's buzzing. I'm this wee guy. I'm in there to take somebody's position. And then it took me. Listen, I'm not saying it. I went in and set the hell on fire. It did take me probably 46 months to get to grips with the intensity of the game. You know, I've came from junior football to
the step up a level. Yeah,
you know, I'm coming up 2 or 3 levels. It was a quick learning curve, you know, because I wanted to make the most of it. And Graham was magic with me, him and Joe Miller. Were the coaches, obviously Graham the manager, Joe was the assistant manager. And then obviously they left. Joe took over for a short period of time. Then I had Colin Henry as my manager.
What was he like as a manager? I mean, it was short as well, but what was he like as a manager and the man?
Listen, it was a very difficult time for Colin. You know, he had the situation with his wife passed away through illness. So Colin was all over the place in terms of that. You know, he was travelling back and forward to make sure his kids were okay, look after his wife. Unfortunately, you know, it was a sad time. You know, I still speak to his son Kyle, who was in it at the time. A lovely kid, lovely family. So it was unfortunate for Colin at that time because he couldn't really dig his teeth into the.
No, and you probably didn't get to see the real Colin either, with everything that's been going on.
He had a lot going on in the background, which was difficult for him to try and manage. You know, he had a young family, his situation with his wife, he's still trying to do his own job. So it was unfair on him to be judged in that time, you know, and then eventually Colin left. But in that time I was at Clyde, I got a week's trial at Norton Forest, which probably a lot of people don't know. You know, Colin Calderwood was the manager. I mean, Colin had obviously been Scotland teammates. Got the opportunity to go down there. It was an unbelievable experience. Came back up the road, was told I would get a contract, so I was over the moon. I went down end of November, start of December, and then, you know, obviously what's going to come next. Come back up the road, thinking, right, we're going back down in January when the window opens. Unfortunately, Colin Calderwood lost his job. New manager comes in. You know, the rest history. You know, I could have been down in England playing for Norton Forest, but that's the nature of football. That's how cutthroat it is. So then, obviously, that disappointment turns into jubilation when I get a call from my agency to say that Craig Brewster at Inverness wants to sign you. I had the opportunity.
It was 45,000 you signed for it.
Yeah, well, I don't.
You wondered, no?
I didn't get involved in that side of things. But I had the option. I could have went in the summer, or I could have waited. I could have went in the January. But I was that eager to get to the Premier League.
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to go in the January. So again, John Brown had just come into Clyde. He didn't want me to go. I'd only worked with him for 3 days, and I says, listen, I want to go. This is what I've dreamt of. So then I get to move to Inverness. I'm playing the Premier League.
Made your debut against St Mirren, I've got here.
Yeah, made my debut against St Mirren, old St Mirren Park, so it would have been Love Street, Park. So again, it was another level. So again,
what did that feel like? Well, the bigger crowds and just a different stadium atmosphere and that. It must be quite daunting, eh?
It's just a dream, Barry. You know, it was like it wasn't so much more daunting for me because of where I came from. You know, I came from a working class background. You know, a working class family, and I knew coming through Atlantic United into Clyde, I didn't want to give it up. So I was a fanatic about just wanting to be a footballer. I didn't want to give it up so easily. I wanted to give it everything into it. So I was obsessed with just being a footballer. I'd done everything, doing extra all the time. And then, like I say, eventually I settled in. And like I say, I played a lot of games at Inverness. I really enjoyed my time up there. Lovely part of the country as well. Craig obviously left, and then Terry Butcher comes in.
The characters of the game that you're now mixing with, it must be like
you're talking about. Like these are some of the people I've worked with. Like Terry was unbelievable, you know, and he was a manager that I loved working under. You know, we had our differences, we had our fallouts, but he was on me, and that's the type of managers that I thrived off of. People tell me that's not good enough, son. Well, no, it wasn't really frustrating for me because I used that.
Sorry, you never caught me right. I'm saying just being straight with you. I'm saying
sorry, 100%, just straight down the middle. And I used that as ammunition because I had the mindset, okay, I'll show you. That kind of management drove me to be better. And I think that kind of helped my career prosper and get to the levels I got to. Because I was driven. I didn't want to go back to working 12-hour shifts. I was obsessed with getting better and better and better so that I could have a good career. And like I say, I played, I think, some 505 games all in.
It's unreal, eh? It's massive, eh? It's funny you say that because my boss, I work in a sort of sales environment. Hey, this is obviously just a wee side thing that I do. But my boss does the exact same to me. He always says to me, you can do better, even if I'm doing great. And then I go and do better. And then he says, aye, but look, you've got extra for it. So effectively, I'm still getting it to him and he's getting it to me. And it works, it brings it to you together, eh?
It was both ways. It was both ways because he, obviously, from his point of view, it's great man management because he knows how to push my buttons. To get more out of me to then help the team, so it's a win-win for everyone. And when I'm doing better, then potentially you could move on to better things. So, like I say, I love working with him and Maurice Malpass. They were excellent for me as an individual. But I really
the caps they've got between them for their countries, Maurice Malpass and Terry Butcher.
Incredible. Incredible. And it's like I say, obviously they're getting on in their age as well. So. It's disappointing to see them out the game because they're two brilliant characters. But like I say, I love working with them. And then obviously,
you're looking at Inverness as well. I mean, they're struggling as well. Eh? I see you had 2 assists against Gretna, and they've been doing the pan. It's just money. Eh? It's a shame for the fans. Eh? Inverness are struggling as well now. Eh?
100%. You know, obviously. Alan Savage, who was the chairman before I went into the club, he kind of left the season before I went in. He's now looking to take back over. I think they'll come out of administration very quickly at Inverness, and I'm sure Alan, with the contact and the businesses that he's run, will make sure Inverness are going back up in an upward trajectory because they're a fantastic football club.
Great support.
Yeah, passionate support. You know, like I say, I had 2 fantastic years there. Loved it. Great scenery. You know, the stadium's right on the River Ness, on the Fife Estuary. So yeah, it's amazing setting, but disappointing to see them where they are.
And did you ever? I mean, you move on to Hamilton after that, but did you ever get any chances to move abroad? Any other moves that sort of never came about other than Nottingham Forest? Or?
Well, just it's strange to say that. So when I was leaving Hamilton to go to St Mirren. Oh, sorry, not that way. Sorry, it was when I was leaving St Mirren to go to Morton.
Yeah.
Graham Potter, who is now at West Ham, he was the manager in Östersunds in Sweden, and at that time they were in League 2, 3 of the Swedish leagues, and then I decided not to go, which was in hindsight probably a daft decision because they went on to get treble promotions. And then Graham moves to Swansea, so you never know that. Listen, that's the nature of football. You never know what could have happened. And then coincidentally, Billy Reid becomes his assistant manager, who was my manager at Hamilton. So it's
all the connections,
really strange. It works in strange ways.
Right. So you joined Hamilton on the 1st of February for 25,000. I've played over 85 matches, scoring over 15 goals. Was this the team you supported, Hamilton? Was that sort of, did you team or?
I just have a really fond relationship with Hamilton. You know, I was there in over 2 periods for 10 years. I then took over in the academy, took the kids to Europe, then became a first team coach. So, listen, Hamilton's probably close to my heart is the team that have done the best for me in my life. So,
enjoyed your time there playing more than anywhere, Yank.
Yeah, Hamilton was. I think I played over 250 games for Hamilton over 2 spells. But like I say, I had a really good relationship with Ronnie and Colin, the owner and the chief executive. We had some really successful periods. You know, we under Alec Neil, we got to third in the Prem. In fact, we were actually leading the Premier League for a few weeks.
Brilliant.
Alec left us to go to Norwich. We were sitting third. So I had really high highs at Hamilton, and like I say, I've got a lot of gratitude to a lot of people at that football club for what they've given me in my career.
Good side. I see here I've wrote down a random stat, right? One BBC Sports Player of the Year for accumulating most man of the matches awarded throughout the season 2009-2010, despite only joining in the February. Is that right?
That's correct.
That's mad, some of the stuff you find there. That's good form though, it shows that you're 27 there, 28.
Yeah, like I say, that 6 months, so went into Hamilton, like I said, in the 1st of February, we lost something like, don't quote me on this, I think we lost 2 or 3 games max. Out of in 17 games we went on some run, just missed out in the top 6, finished 7th, and then obviously with the way the split goes, we actually had more points than the team in 6th.
It's mad, it really is, we'll come on to that in a wee bit.
So yeah, it's surreal, but yeah, Hamilton's, like I say, Hamilton's the team closest to my heart in my full career.
That's magic. And I've got here, after then you went on to St Mirren. I'll just rattle off and then we'll talk about it. I've had St Mirren had the bid accepted 19th of January 2012 for 35,000, signed a 2.5-year deal, and made your debut 2 days later, playing against Celtic, I believe.
That's correct, yeah. So, again, leading up to the move to St Mirren, we'd drawn St Mirren in the Scottish Cup, and I don't know if the performance in that game maybe made them think we want this guy, because it's probably one of my best games for Hamilton against St Mirren in that game. And like you say, 2 days later, but obviously when I'm going to sign for St Mirren, my agent's phone's going. Dundee United had come in.
That's right, I've got that written down. There was a bid rejected,
And like I said, I'm an honest guy. I'd already said to St Mirren, listen, I've come, so I'm not the type of people who just say, right, I'm going to go to Dundee United. I wouldn't have done that. But yeah, it was mad. I'm sitting in negotiations when I'm in a hotel, and the phone goes, he has to go. He comes back and says, I need to speak to you. I'm like, what's going on? What's the problem? I need to speak to you. So we've just went away outside. He's like, listen, Dundee United want to sign me. I said, I can't go.
No.
I've already said I'm signing here. So that was under Peter Houston. And then a season, Dundee United to go and win the Scottish Cup. So
typical, just like that. Well, but it's like you say, what's meant to be, you can look back and look over different things in that. But you could have been chasing the Premier League with Nottingham Forest. You just don't know how it panned out.
You don't know, but listen, I really enjoyed my time at St Mirren as well. It didn't go as well as I liked, and like I say, the only regret is, in hindsight, I should have went to Dundee United.
But you scored against Dundee United. I've got here in a 3-1 victory. You scored against Dundee United,
Yeah, I scored against them. But like I say, I went to St Mirren to play as a winger, and I never really got to play there. I was playing left wing. I was playing centre of the pitch, sometimes left back. My main position when I was thriving was off the right, coming in on my left foot, and that's where St Mirren signed me to play. And unfortunately, I never got to play there as often as I wanted. So that was the disappointment. The other disappointment was the League Cup. We won the League Cup. But leading up to the League Cup, we went to St Andrews, and all through the week, I was part of the sessions, and I was thinking I'm going to play in the cup final. And it's always a dream, another dream that I never got to fulfil was playing in a National Cup final. So, cut a long story short, we get to the day of the final. We're at the training ground, manager names the team, doesn't name the substitutes. We go to the stadium, 1:45, game's at 3:00, names the team again, doesn't name the subs. I'm thinking, I ain't involved here. And then eventually somebody said to him, listen, you've not named the subs, what's happening? And then he kind of fluffs about the players, named the subs, and just you're there. And like I said, I felt a little bit let down, I wasn't a wee guy anymore. I was 30, 31. And like I say, if it was myself being in the position I'm in now, I would have done that early part of the week. To let the disappointment of the player not playing in a National Cup final. But listen, that's different managers, different ways of managing. I just, like I say, and after that game, after that day, it was a case of, I need to get out of here now.
And that was 29th of May 2013, the contract was terminated mutually. I've got written down here. So
I just decided, Barry, I spoke to my agent, I says, listen, it's probably the best way we just come to an agreement and move on. It just hurt me a wee bit, and I didn't want to stay about and be disappointed and upset and maybe let people down. I would rather take myself out of the situation. So I just said, listen, let's get something sorted. I'll go. And it was mutual. Listen, there was no animosity. It was just taking the hands and let's move on and move on in our career. So that's what I done. I ended up going to Morton.
And then look at where this has led you on. I mean, this is where you started your love affair with Morton. July 2013, 30-year-old you're at the time here, and this is where you start playing. For me, obviously Hamilton, you played a lot of games, but you were super consistent during your time sort of as you hit 30 and then went back to Hamilton again. And I've got down here, though, we need to talk about it. So you scored your first goal in a 6-2 League Cup win versus D5. But then your second goal was for the penalty spot in a game against Celtic. You scored in extra time. Some of the players on this team, this is probably all these experiences have brought you to where you are now. But you were up against Lennon. You had Scott Brown, Virgil van Dijk in that game as well. Can you talk us through that? Is that the biggest game?
Probably, yeah. People ask me all the time, is that your biggest achievement? It wasn't so much for the fact of beating Celtic. It was the club I was at, Morton, at the time. We were really struggling. We were bottom of the table on a really bad run. And then it's, okay, we're going to play Celtic. Everybody's got your tip to get beat 5-6-0. Game done. It's one of those ones you turn up. Everybody's galvanised. And being there as a player, not just there, I've went to Ibrox and won against Rangers with teams, but for us to win that game, we had to be at our best. The 11 players of Morton had to be A1, giving everything 100% max, start through the roof, start through the roof, and hope that Celtic are maybe 1 or 2 are off it. They're just, that's okay, it's only Morton, we just need to turn up, win the game. And that is basically what happened. We faced 27 corners in the game alone. They had something like 80% possession. And in these games, for anybody that's listening, have maybe not been in these situations or been at this level, if you can get through the first 20 minutes of these games, that's the first part. Because then the fans start to creep onto the pitch, the frustration, then the players start to get nervous of Celtic, Rangers, big Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, etc. And then they start doing things that they wouldn't normally do, start forcing things, they start making longer passes, they stop playing their game because they need to get a reaction and get the fans back on side. And then you get to half time, and then it's like, right, okay, we can get a breather for 50 minutes. And then you have to pick yourself up and you have to go again. And it's the same principles. Get to 60 minutes, get through the first 15. And then again, as the game goes on, you start getting opportunities, you start maybe getting a chance. And we got to 90, and then it's the same again. Team talk, just get through the first 15 minutes. at least try and get to penalties. And then, like you say, the moment comes, we have a great move down from right back into the middle of the pitch to down the left hand side. We get into the box, make a pass, and unfortunately for Effie Ambrose, he slips and handles the ball, and then it's the moment you've been waiting for your whole career.
And did you know you were on penalties then? Did you?
I was a penalty taker, Barry, so I knew I was on it, but there was some players on the team running to get a ball because they wanted to get the ball to take a penalty to score against Celtic. But obviously being the captain, I overruled, and they accepted that. And there's pressure. There's Morton. You've got the whole stadium booing. You've got the eyes in the back of your head like this is your moment. And
who was the keeper? Who was the goalkeeper?
Zaluska.
Zaluska as well. God, yeah, another massive keeper, and massive in stature as well.
Just felt the goal, and you're like, just please score. So it was one of those ones. And I don't know why more people don't. I took penalties all through my career, and I don't know why the keepers go to dive. So 9 times out of 10, if you go down the middle, you go to score. So that was my thought process.
And you can't have the target then at least as well. You've got that.
So like I say, in my head, I'm thinking, right, just put it down the middle, you'll be fine. Just hit it as hard as you can down the middle, you'll be fine. So thankfully, in that moment, Zaluska went to his right, and I went to his right, my left, and then like I say, I went down the middle. Thankfully, went in, and we managed to see the game out, and the emotions after the game, the support. Even now, being the manager at Morton, the amount of older generation that come up and say, "Son, you made me the happiest guy in the world that night." So the memories that will last forever for some of these people.
It's brilliant, eh? Fantastic.
The club then get relegated, and then at the end of the season, back to Hamilton.
But you did see similar. I mean, Queen's Park recently beat Rangers, and they've kind of fell off a wee bit since then as well. I mean, you don't know if it's maybe the high's just too high that you can't then sort of get back to the level that you should be at.
Well, that is generally for being a player and understanding how that works. Is that happens? You put so much effort into these games because you have to, or you could take a down. So the emotions of the game and everything, the lead up to the game, the family, your friends, and then the game itself. And like you say, that's what's probably happened to Queen's Park, albeit stuff coming out with Willie Hockey leaving as well probably not helped them, but it mentally drains you, and then it's trying to pick yourself back up. I've been in that situation in the Premier League with Hamilton. You go to these places, and then for 4, 5, 6 weeks, you don't pick up any points because the emotion in the games took its toll on you, and then you have to get back to a state of mind where you can focus again. And it's weird, but it does happen.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So for there, you went back to Hamilton. You were saying you played. This is where I've wrote down. Played more games for Hamilton over these 5 years in this spell than any other club during your time in your career. Scored on your second debut and a 2-1 versus Arbroath, and that was when you kind of started dipping your toe into coaching a wee bit alongside trying my best here, Darian McKinnon. Is that right?
Yeah, Daz. Yeah, Daz is. Daz was a wee bit later. So yeah, wanted to get back to the Premier League, and like I say, I really enjoyed my time at Morton. It was a hard decision for me because I was a captain. I just picked up 4 Player of the Year awards. Was a top goal scorer for the season. Was a captain. But I wanted to play at top level. I wanted back into the Premier League. So it was a really tough decision. I had 2 really good seasons at Hamilton as well before that. And it was a no-brainer for me. I was back closer to home as well. And obviously Alec had just got the club promoted through the playoffs against the Burning as well. So it was everything was set up to go again. And like I say, the first 6 months was unbelievable. We topped the table for 2 or 3 weeks. We beat Celtic 1-0 at Parkhead. We then beat Aberdeen on the Tuesday night, I think 3-0 at New Douglas Park. And then we went to Fir Park and beat Motherwell 5-0.
Madness, eh?
Like I say, we were. And I always say this to people that ask me the question. I know Alec left in January to go to Norwich, and you look at him now, unbelievable career in management for him. I firmly believe if Alex stayed another 6 months, we'd have finished top 6, no problem.
I think when I'm leaving as well, it just shook everything up, eh?
Well, just in that, Barry, we lost the spine of our team, so we lost Alec, who was an unbelievable player. We lost Tony Andrew, who'd scored something like 17 goals for us in that 6 months. We lost our goalkeeper as well, who went to Norwich, Michael McGovern. We then lost our centre half because he took over as a manager.
And that's when you see the squad depth then starting to, even though you can't
we lost 4 or 5 of our most influential players in the space of or overnight, basically. And then we just capitulated. I think we didn't win another game in 13, and then we started to plummet down the table. But don't get me wrong, we still finished 7th that season. But I firmly believe if Alec had stayed another 4 or 5 months, we would have finished in the top 6, no problem.
But I mean, that's just, you're sort of tying up your playing career here. What I've noticed, right, every player's got different setups, right? How they've came through the setup and joined teams at the right time and moves this came through. I think for yourself, everything that I've read here and what you've told me back, it's kind of primed you for management more than anything else. It's kind of set you up all the experiences you've had in that and disappointment and just some of the stories you've told.
You could say that. Obviously at the start of the conversation, I forgot to say as well, like the amount of rejection I had, Barry, as well. Even when I was at Lanark, I went to Ayr United, I went to Stirling Albion. There was other clubs in there, Queen's Park, and your 2 wee son. And again, I had that desire, like, not to let it bother me. I says, that's fine, that's your opinion. And I kept going until I finally got that opportunity at Clyde. And like I said, that's why I made all these sacrifices to give up my house, my relationship, my wages, to take the peanuts at Clyde because I wanted to do the job.
Yeah, and you've left teams where you've maybe not really wanted to leave them, like you said, Morton, and that you didn't want to leave. But I think you've realised the way your career's went, it's such a short career that you've just had to try and exploit it basically as much as you can to get to where you want to be.
100%. And like I say, I don't have any regrets in my career. The only thing I wish I could maybe have done was maybe win something or maybe played for my national team. But I would never look back in my career and say, I could have done better because the career's got to take its own path. And like I say, to play the amount of games I did, having come into the game at 23 is unbelievable. Like I said, there's players who, don't get me wrong, maybe pick up bad injuries, but there's players who don't play that amount of games and are in the game a lot longer than me.
Did you not get many injuries then? Did you not pick up a lot of injuries?
No, I was very robust, Barry. I hardly was ever injured. I picked up one injury at Inverness. I was out for 7 weeks. I done something in my knee. It wasn't my ACL. It was another ligament in the outside of the knee. I was in a cast for 4 weeks. It was 3/4 ruptured, so it was like a grade 3. A grade 4 is a complete rup. If that was the case, I needed a knot. So I didn't need a knot. I just had to go in this cast that turned into a brace for 4 weeks to let it stitch back together naturally. And then I was back. I was meant to be out for 12. I was back within 7. Again, I was driven to get back. And then, like I says, I come straight back into the team, played something like 13 games in the bounce. And then we played Dundee at McDermott Park in the old SPFL Trust Trophy. It was Ramsden Cup back then. Like I say, again, that's when my relationship kind of started to falter with Terry because he, like I say, he wanted me back. I came back quicker than Bangery was meant to be. Played 12 games in the bounce from him, done really well, and then we get to the cup final and he drops me.
Nice.
And then
these are experiences that if you ever reach levels like that with Morton or whoever you're with, you'll always remember them and you'll never do that to somebody else.
Like I say, he put me on, so I was itching to get on. Like we were 2-0 up at half time. Dundee obviously got a rollicking. Lee Griffiths scores 2, I think, in the game. Somebody else scored, I can't remember who it was, but they go 3-2 up, and I'm at the side of the pitch saying, listen, I'm looking at them going, Gaffer, if I go on, I'll win the game for you.
Right.
I knew I could go on and influence the game because I was in my prime at that time. I had no fear. I knew I could go on and change the game. And I'm looking at him every 2 seconds, like, put me on. He never put me on. He put me on in the 93rd minute.
It's like,
and I get sent off within 30 seconds. And
you're just like...
He tried to blame the defeat on me. It was
your fault.
Off. I'm like, okay. So that's when the relationship... But listen, I loved him to bits. He was outstanding for me. But again, just situations like that, it's where I learn. I would never do that now in my career. Manager. Like they're the things that people talk about the good and the bad. You take the good and you leave the bad at the door. So these are, like you've said in the podcast, Barry, these are the experiences that I've now taken into my management career.
Aye, it's amazing. And just as before you actually joined Morton, I've got here, you can enlighten me what this means, but head of professional programmes for Livingston. What were you doing there?
So when I left Hamilton to go to Hamilton let me go, and Davey called me up and says, would you like to come in and rebuild my academy for me? And I says, no problem. So that's really what that told me. Livingston did their academy, so and they rebuilt the whole academy from scratch. So recruited the players, recruited the staff,
brilliant,
set the whole thing up, and now it's thriving. And like I say, I'm really thankful to Davey as well, because I'd been at Hamilton for about 7.5 years, and then that's how football works. It's just bang, you get a call to say that's you done, and that's how ruthless football can be. It's just like finished them, gave them bump back. And listen, I don't have any. There's like races. That's football. I know how it works. Like I say, I've still got really good relationships with Colin and Ronnie to this day. So like there was no fallout. It was just decision was made. Your time's up. You have to move on, and that's how football works sometimes. But the relationship's still there because, like I say, there was a mutual respect in the time I was there. I gave everything for them. They gave everything for me. And like I say, I've got a lot to thank Colin and Ronnie for as well. Like I say, Colin and Ronnie put me onto my coaching career. And like I say, if it wasn't for them, we would just sitting doing the job.
That's when you're starting. You notice as soon as you finish playing, the decisions start falling in your favour.
Yeah, you could say that. Like I say, I only went to Livingston for a short spell. I was only there for 6 months. But my main role was the academy, albeit I was part of the first team coaching staff. But I love working with kids. You know, that was my part. I worked at Hamilton for about 7 years, 2015 to 2002, and most of that was working with the under 17s, under 18s. We got them to Europe. Like I say, it was an unbelievable achievement. You know, you've got Celtic, Rangers who spend big money on their academies, Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, Motherwell, and like I say, Hamilton. That season we won every single. Well, say we won we were undefeated. We won 20 games, drew 4, got to Europe. Played FC Basel, whose academy budget alone was £6 million. £6 million, and we beat them over 2 legs. Then we got FC Midtjylland, again, whose budget I think was something like £6 million just for our academy, and they eventually beat us over 2 legs. But the experience was unbelievable. And then, like I say, I went to Livingston after that.
This is a wee story. I mean, there's a lad that he's a family friend as well, right? But he needs a wee bit of extra support. His name's Cooper, right? He'll be delighted that I've mentioned his name here. But as a wee testament for what you've done at Livingston as well, they've actually got him on the course for kids that need extra support, and he's learning football and he's embracing it. And it all comes through for when you had the youth academy, and now the Livingston are a great wee club for it.
Oh, they're brilliant. Davy's first class. Like what he's done for that football club's unbelievable. Testament to the effort he's put in, you know, because he's done most of it himself. But yeah, that's fantastic to hear. You know that they're doing stuff for people that maybe need a little bit more support because they've got a great setup. You know, it's a wonderful club, and the academy's now thriving as well.
It's good to see you. So just moving on to your Greenock then. So you've just completed, I think you're at 153 now, but you just completed your 150th game for Greenock Morton. You deserve a medal for that in itself. 3 years with the one team. It's unheard of.
It's surreal, Barry, to be honest. You know, like I say, when the job came around, obviously Gus McPherson lost his job, and I've always wanted to be a manager on my own. So people always say, when's the right time? No one knows when the right time is. You know, you have to put yourself in that situation. So spoke to Davey. Davey didn't want me to leave. Obviously, the hype of Morton wasn't great. You know, it was. You looked at the history of the managers. I think they had something like 4 managers in the space of 15 months, 16 months. Culture wasn't great. You know, people within the club weren't great. And he's tried to put me off. I'm saying in my head, no, I want to go and I can change, I can make it better.
You've got a blank canvas, eh? You've got everything. You can do what you know, eh?
But I was more in my thought process, Barry. I knew I could go in there and make the team better, and I could make the club better.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, I went through the process, had 2 interviews, came back a couple of days later, got told the job's yours if you want it, we'll give you 24 hours to make a decision.
Brilliant.
So then, you know, you get the butterflies, you're going, what have I got myself in for here? You know, I'm now not the guy not make decisions, I'm the guy now make decisions. Mm-hmm. But straight away, you know, spoke to my partner, spoke to my family, and I knew it was the right call to make. So quickly called him back, says, listen, I don't need 24 hours, I'll take the job. So yeah, it was quite whirlwind, you know, it was to go and say goodbye to everybody at Livingston. Next morning, you're in at Morton, speaking to all the players, the staff. And like I say, I went in there at a bad time, you know, there were 18 games into the season, they'd only 13 points, they're sitting rock bottom, they're 5 points off I think it was Dunfermline. And you've got to quickly change the mood of the whole place. You know, you've got to lift people. You've got to go in there. You've got to set your stall out. You've got to speak to staff. You know, I only went myself, Barry. So normally managers are taking 4 or 5 people. I only went myself. You know, I wanted the opportunity, and the remit was you had to come yourself. So I was like, no problem. I'll come. I'll work with what's in there. And I'm glad I've done that. You know, because of my assistant manager, Andy Millen, has been instrumental for me. You know, we're really close now. I'd known Andy in a short capacity. You know, he was my coach at Hamilton for a very short spell under Billy Reid. But over the years now, you know, we've been together 3.5 years. We know inside out each other how we work. You know, I know Andy inside out. He knows me inside out. We know how we work. We know when to leave each other alone. We're on the phone every day. Talking about football. He'll go and watch games. I'm at games, so we're really close now. But yeah, getting back to the first couple of months, you know, I was in there. My first game's cancelled because of the weather. I then need to go. My first game's away to Kilmarnock, the league leaders, just to go to the Premier League. Derek McInnes a few months previous are flying, and I've got to quickly try and get my points across the way I want to play. Now, when I'm in there, you know, my philosophy was I want to play this great way of playing, expansive football, play through the lines, wingers running high, striker long, wing backs, full backs bombing forward, expansive football, and then you get to see the squad and you're going. So I had to find a formula that would get me results. You know, I went to a back 3 with 2 wing backs, played a middle 2 with a 1 in front, and then 2 strikers. And we went 7 games unbeaten. You know, we go to Kilmarnock, we draw 1 each. We should have won it, to be fair, but we get a 1-1 draw, which is fantastic to start it off. My first home game's a 5-0 win against Dunfermline, who were our nearest challenge, our nearest competitor at the bottom of the table. So within 2 games, I've cut the deficit to 1 point. We then go to United, away from home again. We win 2-0. So within 3 games, we've overleaped Dunfermline, looking up the way rather than down the way. I then win Manager of the Month in my first month. We go 7 games unbeaten. I win back-to-back Manager of the Month. I win January and February. It's a piece of cake. It's just
this is all right. I should have done this earlier.
So then, and then obviously then we lose a couple of games, and then it's trying to pick them back up again, and then we go again. And then we get safe. You know, we finish 7th in my first 6 months, and then I've got to build a brand new squad. And then unfortunately for us, that full next season, we finish in 57 point level with Partick Thistle. They've got a better goal difference. They get in playoffs, we don't. And it's a bit of disappointment. But like I say, to be 3.5 years into the job is testament to club first and foremost for backing me, because you know there've been periods of time where it's been difficult, but there's also been excellent periods where we've went 16 games unbeaten, 11 games unbeaten, played Celtic, played Rangers, got to the quarter-final of the Scottish Cup, lost out to Hearts, narrowly 1-0, beat Motherwell in the previous round 2-1. So there's been real highs, and and I wouldn't say so much lows, but what I mean by that is there's been times where we've went maybe 4 or 5 games without a win, and runs. But the club have been great with me. Anything I've asked for, they've helped. They've tried to help me as best they can. We're not flush with cash.
No.
There's clubs within the division that are spending way more than we can do, but we give a good account of ourselves. We try and recruit well, or certainly I try and recruit well, and bring players to the club that are going to do well for me. And that's also had a detrimental effect on me, because I'm pulling players that have maybe not fitted in so well at another club, but in my environment and done really, really well, done excellent in the league, and then unfortunately come the end of the season, other people could pay a wee bit more.
Nice.
Players, and I've got to restart again. So that's been a common theme in the 3 years, or 3.5 years. But
you're doing the players what managers were doing with yourself when you were playing, and you're sending them on that journey, and it's a total different outlook on it, but it's brilliant, eh?
Oh, listen, of course, that's what I love. That's what I love doing in my job, is bringing players that have maybe fell out of love with the game, maybe fell out with the manager at their club. But that's not to say that the player's a bad player. It's just maybe there's been a disagreement. It's a tough job. It's maybe the way he wants to play doesn't suit the club he's at. So, like I say, you have to go through all these variables and speak to people and get character references and speak to the player himself, get his versions of events, and then make a call from there. But like I say, I've fully enjoyed my time at Morton. I've fully enjoyed working with players that are with me now, players that are with me. And like I say, in my job, when players leave, I just hope that they can go away and not, they only say good things about you. I would never like a player to go away and say, he was this or he was that, or he treated me this way. I think I'm a fair guy. I'm always honest with my players. There's no grey area. It's black or white. If I think players are doing well, they'll get told they're doing well. If I think they're doing poorly, I'll tell them. I don't try and bluff anyone, because
treat everybody you want to be. You want to do it.
You can't do it, Barry. You can't bluff anybody, because you'll get caught out. You can't lie to anyone either, because they're too clever. So I'd rather just be honest, and then there's no come back to me. No one can say, "Oh, I did this," but so I try and always be honest as I can with my players.
Well, listen, it's been magic. I mean, we're currently you've given me an hour of your time. I was only asking for half an hour, so I really appreciate that. Just sitting chatting football and that is brilliant. Like I said, your career's kind of leading you to where you're now. All the wee disappointments of learning things you're able to take on and put across into your own team, and I think that's what keeps you stable where you are with Morton, and it's a good setup. So it's been magic, man. Can only thank you.
No, listen, no problem. I love doing these. I've only started doing them recently, but I think they've been a help for me to get out how my career started, how it's going, and the challenges that I've had, certainly management. To be in the job 3.5 years, and jobs nowadays, you're lucky if you get 12 months. I'm the 5th longest serving manager in Scotland at the moment. My first job is crazy. So, like I said, I've got a lot to thank my club for, but I must give the players that I've had and with now huge credit, because without them, I'm nothing, basically.
Brilliant. But listen, thanks so much. What I'll do, right, is I'll get the video edited. I'll send you a copy over, and that's magic. I'll just say to my viewers, if I hate saying this, but subscribe if you like it. And my next guest is actually Phil Brown, ex-Hull manager.
Oh, nice.
I'm coming on as well, so we could speak to a couple of managers. But it's been brilliant. Thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to chat with you, and I just hope everybody's enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed chatting with you, mate.
Well, hopefully that's all I can hope for, pal, that people enjoy listening to the rubbish I've got to speak. But like I said, thanks very much, Barry. Hopefully your podcast takes off, pal. And again, thanks for having me on.